All right, this is my hard top lift system I came up with. It's basically a 8-foot toe strap going under the bottom and a 5.5 to 6-foot toe strap that goes around the back window. It's hooked up to a winch that I mounted up on the rafters upstairs. You can see I just ran a truss bolted to the support beams across here and back to here, secured with 4 very strong bolts. And then there's the lift. It comes with a nice remote control to allow you to raise it and lower it. And when it's time to lower, we just go in and we hit a button. Stop when we get it nearby where it needs to go. Some of the preparations I do is I'll take the bolts that go in here, I'll put them on at the very last because there's a risk of them scratching the paint around where that bolt is supposed to go through. These are cork blocks I stole from my wife. She uses them for yoga, but they're nice and soft and they won't mar the finish. And when I go to set it down, I lay the back deck on here, which allows me to put the bolts in and have enough space to get in and put those bolts in. And then I come up here and I align these pins into the holes that they line up into. And this tilts just down a little so that this will go and set in here first. And then I lay their back on the blocks and then I gently let it down. The other thing you have to be careful of is there's bolts that go in here that this is at risk of scratching the paint. And so you have to be very careful on the very last few inches of lowering that these are centered left or right on each side so that they don't end up scratching the finish here. The hardware that I used is kind of a accumulation of a bunch of different parts that I had come together. It's these link carabiners that you can screw into each other, and I found these at Harbor Freight. Those are actually for another application, but it had the hole in the top and it had a nice 2 to 3 inch gap that would fit the straps very nicely, and it orients everything correctly with the way that the hook goes in the lift. It wants to run this way so it doesn't spin around as it's hanging up in the air. But because it's got a lot of metal in it, I use just some cheap Summit fender protectors. I put those underneath so it won't scratch as it goes all the way down to the bottom. It won't mar any of the top of the hard top. This is the aligning of the front pins. That shows us that the pins are aligned in the correct position in the front. The next thing I do is I look at the alignment for these L brackets and make sure the left and right looks correct. I just look at the passenger side and the driver's side and make sure they are perfectly aligned in their positions. It's close, but it looks pretty good right there. It's not going to hit the paint at all. The next step is to put the pins in, and we just align them into the slot, slide them over, and they're ready to go down into the receiving hole. Still a little bit of alignment. You have to be careful that it goes correctly straight down into the hole. Here's the other one. That one looks pretty good. Right on track to drop in where it's supposed to go. But when I lower these down, I do it by hand. I take out the cork blocks that I have holding it up, and I just make sure it fits right into the right spot, and also keeping in mind the L brackets that they aren't touching. And so this is a general process. It takes 2 hands, so I'm gonna set the camera down. We'll start by taking a little more slack out of the line. The next step is to remove the rear strap, which I've got on these carabiners, or basically bolt. You don't have to take the whole thing out. You just have to be careful with the metal that it doesn't touch the paint. And you just slip that through. All good. Next step is to carefully align one side into its correct position. So I lift it up a little, I take the block out and gently make sure everything is going exactly where it needs to be. That looks good. It's aligned good. And we do the other side, same process. And we're on. Perfect. Everything's aligned. Yay. At this point, we need to take off the strap. And I probably went overkill on this with the amount of hardware that I've got on it, but I wanted it to be strong and I didn't want it to fail. So we'll just get the hook out of the way. And the easiest way just to separate these is to remove the pin bolt. Drop that through there. And carefully, without scratching your paint, remove the whole harness. All done. All right, the L bracket bolts, probably the easiest ones to put on. We just basically align the 1/2-inch screw, 1/2-inch wrench, and give it a fair snug before we do the rest of the bolts. And we'll do the other one. And there's the driver's side, all done. Now the next bolts are a real pain. They're way up in there, and with the soft top in place, makes it extremely difficult to get to those. The factory uses a system that looks like this. It's got the bolt that goes into the hard top. It's got a washer, a rubber seal, and a lock washer. I came up with this, which is basically a 1/4-inch 4-prong wing nut. Much easier to get your hands in there. It's got a nice wide base, so it's going to go right up into the receiving bolts that are in there, and you can do it with one hand and you don't need a wrench. And just tighten it till it's fairly tight but not too tight. And I just tighten these screws good, and we are done. The roof is on.